Laboon, the island whale with scars, born in the West Blue, made a big splash into the One Piece scene when it first debuted after the Straw Hats first got to the Grand Line. It crashed itself up against Reverse Mountain out of emotional frustration over being unable to see the pirate crew family that essentially abandoned it, and being unable to subsequently return home to its homeland in the West Blue, until he met the Straw Hats and was given a new hope and a new friendship. Laboon is also known as an island whale, assumedly because of their great size, and Laboon specifically being called one of the biggest ones, born in the West Blue. But for a whale that threw fins at a mountain on a regular basis for decades, the question is, how big is Laboon? Well, to answer that question, let's take a look at this big guy. Laboon is pretty long, but there isn't much we can do to scale him because he's in the water most of the time, and not posted up against Reverse Mountain itself. So the closest we see Laboon get to an object as an adult whale in the series is the Straw Hats and the Going Merry. In this image, Laboon's eye is about 6.5 times the length of the Going Merry. Now the Going Merry, according to the One Piece wiki, is 1,300 centimeters or 13 meters long, and 1,100 centimeters tall or 11 meters tall. Therefore, the Eye of Laboon has a diameter of about 84.5 meters. A great place to have a football game because that is even bigger than most sports stadiums. By the way, does the One Piece universe have any sports? Not sure. Anyway, we can use that to estimate the length and height of Laboon since his eye is completely spherical. Based upon this image of Laboon, which is consistent with other artwork of Laboon in the anime, its body length is about 26 times the diameter of its eye, which is about 2.11 kilometers. The length of a small mountain. The height of Laboon is about 11 times the diameter of its eye at 929.5 meters, which is about 3 Eiffel Towers. Now at this point we know that Laboon is huge, but how fat is he? Now this is where the math gets tricky. Technically speaking, we don't see Laboon completely laid out flat, and he is also not a perfect spheroid. He's a whale. So in order to estimate that mass, we have to look at the sperm whale, the whale upon which Laboon's design is based. So with a length of 2,112.5 meters and a max diameter of 929.5 meters, we can estimate its body model as 3 shapes: a central cylinder, a front cone, and a rear cone, at 1/3 its length each, at 704 meters, 464.75 meters, and another 704 meters with that tapered middle and tapered tail area. Now, as you can imagine, at this point I actually had to rely on OpenAI for help with the math because it was beyond what I could imagine in my head in about 30 minutes. Now, using this model, we can estimate that Laboon's total volume is 7.95 times 10 to the 8th power meters cubed. Now, comparing this to the mass of an actual sperm whale, the mass of Laboon is a whopping 8.19 times 10 to the 11th power kilograms, or 819 million tons, which is about 10 million times heavier than the heaviest sperm whale recorded. Now in that, you may think we're done, but no, we're not. Laboon has a network of tunnels inside of his body that his personal vet Crocus built in order for him to more properly care for the health of such a gigantic creature. These tunnels are made of, it seems, a mixture of stone, metal, and wood, but we can only guess based upon what we see in the anime. Now, this addition is meaningful because metal and stone weigh significantly more than whale blubber. So first we have the tunnel that Luffy accesses in order for him to get inside of Laboon. Now, it's a human-sized path, so we can imagine it as being 4 by 4 meters down a winding path that runs at least the radius of Laboon to his stomach. We can imagine this as roughly 1,267.5 meters long, because we're guessing at this point. Now, with a wall thickness of 0.5 meters, and the materials being about 70% stone and 30% iron, we can perhaps say that this tunnel takes up a volume of over 20,000 meters cubed for the inner volume and over 11,000 meters cubed for the lining material, which we can assume is about 20,760 tons of stone and 26,860 tons of iron, which makes a grand total of 47,600 tons of material. Now for the second tunnel, which is also a waterway. That tunnel has to be big enough for the Going Merry to sail through, so it's much bigger. Judging by the images we see of the Straw Hats compared to the tunnel, we can say that it's at least 4 times the diameter of the Going Merry, which is about 52 meters and has a length of 464.75 meters, as it has to be at least half the thickness of Laboon himself, as the tunnel goes from his stomach to the outside of him. In order to support all that mass, we have to imagine the wall's thickness as maybe 5 meters thick, and the materials as being 65% stone and 35% iron. This makes the lining volume 4.15 meters cubed, meaning the stone materials are 703,000 tons and the iron materials are 1,145,000 tons of weight, not including the nearly 990,000 tons of water that would have to be flowing through it at any given moment. Now, we're almost there. Laboon has 2 giant gates inside of its body that lets ships and floating islands into himself and out. How much do they weigh? Well, we can assume that these gates are made of iron or steel and not stone, as they seem to be. The first gate, starting from the stomach, is the biggest. Comparing the door that is on the gate, which is about human height as far as doors go, to the entire gate, and that to the Going Merry's height, we can say that the inner gate is about 5 times taller than the Going Merry, while the outside gate, on the other hand, is about 2.5 times taller than the Going Merry, which means the inner gate is 55 meters tall and the outer gate is 27.5 meters tall. Now, assuming these gates are iron and steel and the chat understands the general dimensions of an oval gate, and assuming the thickness of the gate is a little over a meter, we can say, based upon a size comparison, the gates perhaps have the same thickness, and the small gate seems to be about 2/15 of the total length of the Going Merry according to this picture. This means the mass of the inner gate is 32,121 tons, and that of the outer gate is 8,030 tons. This makes the total combined mass of the gates themselves 40,151 tons. So with the inclusion of all of the combined internal structures inside of Laboon, we're looking at a combined weight of 2,917,751.5 tons. Now you may be asking yourself, how exactly can a whale survive the mass of 8 Empire State Buildings inside of it? Let's chalk it up to One Piece magic. Well, that's not necessary. You've got to remember that Laboon is an island whale. The combined weight of his internal structures is only about 0.356% of his total mass, which is a staggering 819 million tons. Even if we're overestimating here, which we likely did, something of that size is a weight that Laboon would hardly even notice, if a creature that size could exist in the first place. So combined, what do you think about our 821,917,751.5 ton behemoth? And how was our math? One thing I know for sure is that Luffy was indeed crazy for trying to fight Laboon back then. He definitely would have lost. I mean, dude didn't even have second gear at this point, let alone hockey. Laboon the whale sure is great, and it's not just due to his size. Laboon took things personally and he cared a lot. So it's good to know that such a big whale could be so well cared for and have so much. Hey there, so I'm editing the video and I realized that according to the wiki, apparently the height of Laboon is only 400 meters. So adjusting everything we just did, the man-sized tunnel lining is 20,484 tons. The large stomach tunnel lining is 793,115 tons. The water in the large tunnel is 424,744 tons, and the gates themselves are generally unchanged because they were scaled relative to the Going Merry and not to anything else. So the combined internal structure is probably a little bit closer to 1,278,494 tons compared to Laboon's new body mass, which is actually 65,300,000 tons, giving him a total combined weight of 67 million tons approximately. And one thing is for sure. These images are not scaled properly. There's no way that the Going Merry would be that small compared to Laboon's eye, and it's only 400 meters tall. So, which math do you like best, compared to the image or compared to the wiki source from the One Piece magazine, which may or may not be thoroughly vetted? See you soon.